Well, yeah, it was 80s for sure. early 80s, in fact. Dominic was sending us to WWF to do jobs to get experience, not just in the ring, but also how is a television show put together? How do they do? It's a pretty big industry, and Dominic was sending us up there to do jobs to get that experience. And the first night, and he sent a van of us, Mick and I worked. It was the same night that Mick got his jaw broken by the Bulldogs, by Dynamite Kid. And that night in particular, I worked with Randy Savage first. I think it was Butch Reed second. And Paul Orndorff third. I did 3 tapings, and after the match, as a kid, I'm working with Mr. Wonderful Paul Orndorff and Bobby the Brain Heenan. It was pretty intimidating, because they were such iconic names and such, larger-than-life figures, both of them. And after the match, I came back to the dressing room, not expecting anybody to say anything to me. I'm just one of the kids on the show. And both Paul and Bobby came up to me, and Bobby Heenan said to me, "Kid, that was the best I've seen anybody take his pile driver." And to me, that just was like, wow, what a cool thing to say to somebody. And Paul said to me, multiple times, but that night included, said, "Don't ever forget that the people you're working with that put you over are helping you build a career, and never forget that." And Randy Savage had said something earlier that night very similar. So to me, it was like a night walk through history that night. Working with these larger-than-life, iconic, truly legendary names, and not just working with them, but learning from them. And I was heartbroken when I heard earlier tonight that Bobby had died. Bobby had been ill, as we all know, for some time. But the thing to me about Bobby that really threw was, even in the midst of that, and anybody that's talked to him will know what I'm talking about. His wife, Bobby had his lower jaw removed and, several parts of his tongue, and had a very difficult time talking. And anybody not familiar, it was very difficult to understand him. His wife could understand him completely, which just shows you what a tremendous saint she was and is, to have been able to do that, because it would just sound like he was mumbling. And I saw her walking at a WrestleCon a couple years back. I saw her pushing Bobby down the street, in the wheelchair. Well, I gave my agent my bag, and I ran across and I said, "Give him to me." So I pushed him down, and we walked into the venue, and he was waiting for the vendor that he was appearing with to come and meet him. And a few minutes later, the vendor comes up, and we all get onto an elevator, and the vendor sits there and looks at the buttons on the wall, not sure which button to push. And Bobby said something, like mumbled something out. I couldn't tell what he said. But his wife started laughing and slapped him on the shoulder like, "Oh, you're crazy." And I said, "What did he say?" And she said, "He just said that that's the first time he's ever seen somebody get lost in an elevator." And, it was perfect Bobby Heenan. I mean, to the end, Bobby kept that sense of humor of his that made him such an iconic color commentator. And more than that, he fed off of the fans. I've heard a lot of people say, I wouldn't be able to make appearances or whatever. And they're missing the point, because Bobby, it wasn't about vanity to Bobby. It was about him experiencing the fans and being in front of the fans and saying hello to the fans and signing an autograph for the fans, which gets back, I guess, in some large way to what we talked about earlier with Sasha and Seth and Jericho and the rest of the guys. Here's Bobby Heenan at these places in a very negative physical state, and yet he adored doing that. I have no doubt, and I'm sure his wife would agree. I can't say that she will, but I'm pretty sure she would. That kept Bobby alive for a lot longer. That he so enjoyed meeting the fans and being in front of the fans that you couldn't keep him away. When I got that text earlier today about Bobby, I was heartbroken. It just seems that with every year that goes by, we lose more and more of the guys that I looked up to, that I watched as a kid, that I learned from, and in whatever small way, for me to thank Bobby Heenan for everything he gave to the business and keep the business floating so a goofball like me could come make a living in it. I want to take this chance to say thank you to Bobby Heenan because he was a tremendous guy.